My name is Maite Ferre, and today I will be presenting my informative speech. It is to no surprise that the United States is a well-diverse country, especially in more lenient democratic areas such as the West Coast and here in Washington State. It is such a beautiful and unique experience to be able to enjoy such a vast number of cultural foods, hear different languages, and songs from all over the world while being surrounded by many different people with completely diverse backgrounds and life experiences. With that said, it is also especially important to learn about the history of the United States, the effects certain events had on other countries, and how that contributed to what we know and see today. Politics has always been a huge part of decision making, therefore it always seems to be a hot topic on the news, as we saw last year during the run for the presidency. One of the long-standing political topics revolves around our southern neighboring country, Mexico. From the Mexican-American War to current immigration laws, Mexico and the United States have a long-standing history that has impacted both countries. One of the most momentaneous events of history between Mexico and the United States is the Mexican-American War, as stated by the Council of Foreign Relations. In 1845, U.S. President James Polk offers to purchase California and New Mexico from Mexican government and seeks to make Rio Grande the border between the two countries, which would make Texas part of the United States. Advocates for Manifest Destiny, the 19th century concept that the United States had a moral obligation to expand to the Pacific coast, supports the plan. Mexico refuses Polk's offer, and in retaliation, Polk sends military forces to Rio Grande, and fighting begins. A full-scale U.S. invasion follows. During this time, Mexico was also a refugee to American slaves seeking asylum, since Mexico declared that as soon as anyone stepped on Mexican soil, they were considered a free person. The war ended a year later with a treaty. The treaty obligated Mexico to cede present-day Arizona, California, New Mexico, and parts of Colorado and Nevada. In return, the United States pays $50 million in compensation for war-related damage to Mexican land. The treaty also provides for the protection of the property and civil rights of the 80,000 Mexican nationalists living in the U.S. territory. Many become U.S. citizens, but most lose their land by force or fraud. The many Mexicans that lost their livelihoods and lands after the Mexican-American War set out for better opportunities and futures. The people who were mostly affected by that lived at what we know today as the southern Mexican border. Years after the Mexican-American War, it was estimated that over 60,000 Americans were working on the railroads by early 1900s, representing as much as 60% of today's America's railway labor force at the time. Years later, during the Great Depression, Mexicans migrating to the United States to seek better opportunities were received with unwelcoming arms, since Americans started to view Mexicans as competitors for jobs offerings and as an inconvenience and drain to social services. This, along with other events and policies such as Operation Wetback that was set in motion during 1954, which deported roughly 1.3 million Mexicans, as reported by Immigration and Ethnic Society, and the Clinton administration that worked on criminalizing immigrants coming through the border by mandating jail time while deporting undocumented immigrants. These were all events that trickled down into today's politics and talk of immigration and border issues. Along with border control, the war on drugs was an equally critical issue in the Mexico and United States relation history. When President Nixon declared the war on drugs, cars along with people were stopped and thoroughly searched at the U.S.-Mexico border, causing long lines and heavy delays. Mexico was displeased by not being properly informed of the operation taking place. During the late 2000s, drug-related killings soared. In December 2008, a Justice Department report stated that Mexican drug traffickers pose their biggest organized crime threat to the United States. A statement recently released by the White House on this topic stated, "Neither country can be secure if the other is not. Cooperation between Mexico and the United States has never been more vital in the fight to combat the deadly threat of illicit fentanyl, heroin, synthetic drugs. The United States partners with Mexico to reduce the impact of illicit drugs on U.S. communities, dismantle criminal organizations, manage migration, improve citizen security, and reduce impunity, and promote human rights and the rule of law. While Mexico and the United States have a long, rough history that includes many events mentioned like the Mexican-American War, immigration, border control, and the war on drugs, today both sides are working towards a mutual understanding and equal respect and benefit for both countries. Thank you for listening to my informative speech.